Well, actually, it's about. Yes, honestly, that's not.
Oh,
But the other is more senior, just he's struggling with our benign. It's to be found. Oh, my, it was.
2 o'clock in the morning to go, and I don't mean, doesn't matter whether it's a cat or a dog or a friggin' hamster, that would be. I did that when our kids were little. That's.
Is one of the, yes, the original rose?
Oh, gosh.
Right now.
Do your girls love the cats? Yeah.
That will stay with me for a couple weeks, problem solved. No, I see what that's.
That's so fun.
I didn't know that. You didn't. Water.
You know, it's so funny. Susan and Clarence got and the kids went away for a week over February breaks. And I got to take care of the fish. And I've never been so nervous about anything because I was pretty sure. Yeah, it's just this fish in a little bowl. I was like, I cannot be the guy.
Turbulent injury.
Yeah, exactly.
And then every maybe 2 weeks going, I got shut off. You know when you like go fish how big your tank is, and they wouldn't sell me anymore because I kept replacing them for about 4 months.
That's
So
really
they sell me stuff, your tank's not-
That's great. Well, Margaret's rabbit still lives at John Willis's farm. It's amazing. It's the oldest rabbit in America. Call this meeting of the Shoreham Town Council to order, please. Today is Tuesday, March 31st. It is 4:01 PM. Welcome. So today is a day to continue our budget discussions and hold our first public hearing. Do you want to go over this document that you just gave us, Amy?
I'm open to process. These are some
Well, so
thought
am I.
and
Look at us.
so
Footloose and fancy free.
yes, I'm happy to walk through it if that's best, or if people want to start with their own ideas.
No, let's go through this. This
Okay.
is
And this is sort of top to bottom concrete for discussion and for a later date. So we'll start with human services and then again, just sequentially through the budget. The utility line was under budgeted. We need to increase it by $600 to reflect the current rents that we pay at the community
I'm
center.
not going any higher than 590.
I mean, in full transparency, they have asked for an additional increase, but we are not currently making space for that in the budget.
Gotcha.
Let's say that again. I missed
They
it.
have asked for an additional increase beyond bed
Oh, okay.
at the community center, but we are not currently budgeting for that. We discussed a little bit the facilities maintenance line and spent some time, and Mona can interrupt me at any point, looking at the detail of that over the last 2 years and the program going forward. And that was an interesting exercise in that a lot of the last 18 months of work were what I would classify as building maintenance, but because they were being done for the first time, it was a bit of a first big step. And so going forward, we would like to reclassify those as building maintenance. And so some examples are fire system maintenance, which had not been kept current. The vendor is much more expensive. Those initial costs were material, but going forward, those are really annual inspections that need to be done. Same thing with fire extinguishers. A wholesale step to do all of those. But going forward, that's an annual maintenance item. And so to reflect those better, we would recommend shifting $40,000 out of facilities maintenance, leaving that balance at 70,000 and increasing building maintenance by 40,000.
It's the building maintenance.
In terms of where it is in the document,
This is an accounting change, not new money.
Yeah, it's just.
Am I correct in?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
The building, the maintenance of facilities.
It is in Public Works.
It's in
Public
public
Works,
work
okay.
under facilities maintenance.
So Amy, just so I can understand the, so the building, we're talking about, we're not talking the Coast Guard station, that's under, we're not talking the Coast Guard station work, we're talking like this building, would this also include like, the fire barn?
Fire barn, bathrooms. So when you think then about what's going to be left in facilities maintenance, which is going to be, I would recommend $70,000. That breaks down into about $40,000 a year in painting, which is a number that's been associated with painting for the last 2 years. And so keeping that program up, that's about all that we can buy in a year either, in terms of contractor availability, but that's been working well. And again, that's across the entire stock of buildings.
This is where we put, we need to paint the trim on the Public Works building over by Twin Maples.
Exactly.
Right.
And we need to
Yep.
paint the interior of this building.
Right.
And we need to paint
Got
the,
This would not be the houses though, right? The across from the school, or is that included in this?
it may also be,
Someday.
it depends on the scale of the project, where it gets classified. If it's one little thing, it may be associated with that building, so Thomas Property Maintenance. If we have contracted, which is more frequent, with a vendor to do a lot of painting across a lot of buildings and it's one contract, it's going to be in this facilities maintenance line. It
Okay.
really depends on how we're procuring it, how it gets classified.
So the bottom line is our rental units would be included as our regular town buildings.
Yes, absolutely. Some of the other things that would be in this facilities maintenance, building repairs, exterior and interior, replacing a window here, some rotten sill over there, refinishing the floors in the meeting room here, all those things are part of that facilities maintenance. Building repairs, carpeting at Town Hall was done last year. And then the last group is really building systems. This is a little bit more repair driven, but it's when you then need to repair something and replacement is really the better long-term option. So an example right now is wholesale across all town buildings needing to replace the AES boxes. We're doing those in sequence, with the worst being replaced first. And so that'll probably take 2 years by the time we've gotten them all done. But it's the fire communications box that then communicates back to the new head end. Yep.
So Amy, my only concern is, so we're really talking 60,000, right? If you back that 10 out. For the paint,
Okay.
well, so you have the
Sure.
painting, you have the exterior repairs, the 20,000.
Yep.
So that's 60,000, right? Is that enough?
Again, we would take more money. In fact, Tom said today, 40,000 is probably half of the painting that we would like to do in a year, but there's also a balance to what we can manage.
Sure.
So,
I went by the library and I looked at the trim the other day. I'm like, wow, that trim looks like it needs to be. I'd like us to be able to get to a point, and we did this with the school. I remember Everett had put together a book of the school of, what needs to be done in a time frame with it. We seem to be, and I don't know whether it's because of money or just because it hadn't been put together, reactive instead of proactive on a lot of maintenance stuff. I'd like us to get to the point where we said, okay, we know there's a 2-year cycle, 3-year cycle, whether it be painting and things that might be done. And I just, and I guess when we look at that, what those costs are, that would kind of dictate what we need to put towards it. I just look at, when I look at $60,000 and I'm looking at the fire barn, the school, the library, I realize the houses are new up there. Whatever, the bills we have, it's Old Harbor Dock. It's just not, and believe me, I like when we're thrifty, but I just think it's, I just hope that we have enough to cover the things that need to be done. That's all.
realistically, I think that number goes up next year again.
Okay.
When you talk about shifting 40,000 to maintenance, that kind of maintenance work 2 years ago didn't cost us $40,000. It
Right.
cost us 15, 20. You know, the escalation in service contractors is real.
Is there a point where in-house that we, like Bob Gallant does a lot of stuff like that? Is there a point where we get I don't know where that break point is where we get more
No.
done?
Generally, no. You know, we do some things in-house, but at the end of the day, being able to engage someone who is focused on a particular task is more valuable than a jack of all trades, if you will.
Sure.
Um,
In any way know what Tom Reesum does all day. I do know that he brought us, he has actually done what you've described, and I think it's the thing that I care most about what Tom does every day, is that we now have a system, like, don't we, he now has track of kind of what's coming up next.
I think we have a much better
Yeah.
handle on that, and it is continually introducing that preventive maintenance. So I am reluctant to agree that we're not doing that well. We're not doing it perfectly, but I think we're doing a lot better. And I think we're continuing to try to do better at that. So to the extent that, you know, you could put additional funding into that line, could we deploy it? Yes. Again, there's a limit to how much you can manage. So I don't know that it's the most pressing thing in the budget, but we could certainly use additional funds. But I would consider it a work in progress instead of something where we're still at the bottom floor.
And I'm okay with that. I just want to be supportive
Mhm.
of proactive maintenance, that's all, because I
Yeah.
think proactive maintenance will save us money down the line,
Better
from
believe
that
it.
end of it. So I'm glad to see you're headed in that direction. Thank you.
If we're ready to move on, community support and the Domestic Violence Resource Center, we talked a little bit about how that was inadvertently dropped in the budget. So we can discuss whether to fund that at a recommended level of $1,000 or their requested level of 3,500, or if we'll want to leave it unfunded. But that was on our to-do list to discuss.
Is this the one that Paul said he uses that he interacts with a great deal? I'm trying to remember from the
A
community.
great deal is probably an overstatement.
But it's a resource.
It is a resource that both Paul and Allison and other chiefs over the years have gone to. I would say we're fortunate in that the frequency is not
Yeah.
high,
Right,
but they are there and available when they are needed.
sure.
And I think that this isn't what we're paying for services.
No,
Right.
This is a donation of that
Yeah.
cause. And I think that the town's been very generous when you think there's probably half a dozen, whether it be the Johnny Cake Center, and Allison could list off the other five, that are all nonprofits that we don't donate also to. I think that we're being very generous at the 1,000 with this. I had spoken to both of them and they were very good with 1,000 on it also. So I'd support the recommendation.
Yeah, me too.
Moving on to capital, the school gym lighting, which was in at 45,000. I did go back to the school and they have indicated they can accommodate that within their fund balance. So we can take that out of the capital side. Just a little bit more detail on the technical end. They are already LEDs, so you won't really see, you actually will see probably an increase in the power bill with all the lights on, because right now you've got 32 fixtures and only 4 are fully operational. 11 of them are fully non-operational and 17 have a mix of 1 to 3 bulbs on. So it's getting pretty dark in there, but it sounds like the school will be able to handle that over the summer. I had a request from Dave today under Ball O'Brien Capital. For fiscal year 27, we had contemplated playground upgrades, which was I think in at 25,000. In the current year, fiscal year 26 capital, we have resurfacing of the tennis courts for 30,000. Given the award of the pickleball courts, Dave would ask to switch those two projects, and you'll see this on the April 6th agenda as well, to be able to execute the playground upgrades this spring and be able to do the tennis court resurfacing under the 27 budget to align with the pickleball courts. He's hesitant to resurface, repaint lines, and then have the new courts installed. And so that is his request, and I think that makes sense. And so given that, we can reduce the line item by 5,000. The next is further evolution of the building official resident inspector conversation. We talked last time that the current budget can accommodate, I believe, an expansion from 1 days to 2 days a week of the building official functions with increased access, increased visibility. If we would like to go further, I would propose an increase of $45,000 to support that hiring and training of hopefully a local part-time residential inspector. So that sort of reflects a part-time engagement for an individual that would be here on the island. Obviously, they won't be operational on day one. I don't believe we have anyone qualified at the moment, but that training, if they're willing to come on board, would include all the testing, eventually attending the state academy for building inspectors, and then working through that qualification process.
I'm a big fan of this approach, Amy.
Okay.
I think having a plan for converting this to a local engaged inspector makes a great deal of sense. I hope that if we're going to have this addition, there'll be some really basic things that don't really require a lot of training, like, does that dormer project have a building permit? You know, I mean, some of this is kind of, I mean, we all see it. Some of this is driving around the island and saying, geez, they have a new deck. But I really, there's a lot I like about I mean, I like everything about it, but I want to particularly point out, you know, the idea of training up someone who is a person who lives here, I think really makes a great deal of sense. And my mind, and I think I've mentioned this to you, my mind's totally open to a range of types of people. You know, I mean, this doesn't have to be whatever, a retired carpenter. I mean, it could be, you know, a bright young person who, you know, has whatever, 3/4 time, half time to, you know, to commit to something like this. I think it's a great idea. And I think you'll find the community likes it too, as it would be my bet. You know, from the conversations I've had with folks, I think this is.
So the first step would be with the land use you're saying, and then try to get this applicant trained.
It's a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Our agreement with Four Leaf goes through the end of June, contemplating restructuring that and having additional building official capacity. So Chuck is with us 1 day a week. I believe we'll have an opportunity to add a second day a week with another, to hopefully bring on another provider, if you will, so that we are expanding that existing capacity. We may be going outside of them. That's sort of the bid process we have to go through. But the goal again is to expand that capacity, and with a personality that's more, and I would say, I've said this to Chuck, this is not speaking on a term, but that's more public engaged and sort of willing to interface in that way. And because I think that's a real priority as well. At the same time, that on-ramp for bringing in a local residential inspector, which is where you start, is a pretty long one. There's some book testing that needs to be done. Eventually, there is also a state class that they don't schedule. They schedule as needed, so we'd be waiting a little bit to see when the state will actually hold.
So like when they get 12 people.
When they
who are
get enough
interested in it.
capacity.
Right.
But as we said, in the meantime, there is plenty of non-credentialed work to be done and plenty of learning about the industry and the island and the observational aspects of.
If the applicant passed that one class, is he able then to inspect all aspects, plumbing, electrical?
No, so that applicant is first eligible for residential inspection, and then you progress from there up through, there are several tiers.
Multi-project.
It's a multi-year project, and it will likely never reach that space of having, unless we have real niche people, local permanent plumbing or mechanical electrical inspectors. Those are generally always going to be such specialties, given the credentialing process right now, that we'll probably always be contracting for those in one form or another. But if we can knock off really good residential and commercial, that's the majority of the work that we have.
I see for, a local person, it's gonna take time. This isn't gonna happen overnight.
Nope.
And I think and I also don't wanna tie your hands to, oh, everything has to go through, or leaf or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, I think what I'm hearing you say is, we will have someone, as it stands now, someone is maybe reviewing the plans and the prints and so forth from there, but a additional person that will be able to handle the day-to-day current enforcement issues that have been raised to our attention. And that may be a contract employee, to fill that position. And then the third leg of this would be where we're trying to train someone locally, which will work with these other two people along the way with it. And
Yes, so we're definitely looking to build a team, to build a coalition that tackles all these things from different angles. Tristan mentioned the zoning side as well. That's a piece of this. It's not the first piece. I definitely feel like at the moment, the enforcement on the building side needs to precede the zoning enforcement side. They obviously work pretty hand in hand, but since we're not doing the first, it's hard to do the second.
But these funds, there's enough between what's being presented here, there's enough to fill that spot. A priority to me is to have someone, in 6 months from now, or 4 or 5 months from now, whatever it is, that can physically do the enforcement end of it. That's like a priority for me.
I hear that. I don't think our constraint is dollars. I think our constraint is finding the right
Right.
bodies. That's going to be the harder part. It's like a lot of things out here, it's being able to
Sure.
hire someone. But I think the dollars are sufficient.
And we control the dollars, not the
Yeah.
hiring. So I want to make sure you have the tools from the dollar end of it. So I'm happy with that. I will say this has been going on for a while, and I appreciate the plan you're putting forward. I think we're headed in the right direction, and it's not as easy as just saying, let's hire someone in the road crew to plow snow or whatever it might be. This is, it's
Just like all the other specialty roles that we've talked about, finance directors, building officials are on that list of statewide shortages, planners.
Planners. Yeah.
So
So this 45, obviously this has been washed, but a good portion of this, I would assume, is freed up from
Yeah.
the lighting. And so the lighting is a one-time event. This would be a continual.
Yeah.
So we just need to be mindful of that down the road.
Mhm.
Although hopefully consolidation with someone homegrown may change those numbers down the road.
over time, I would still be hesitant to get back to a place where we were solely reliant on one person.
Mhm.
First of all, I don't think the credentialing supports that any longer, but that diversified approach, I think, can make sure there are more eyes out there.
And a lot of that was grandfather, correct, with Mark? So
Exactly.
this wasn't like,
Yeah,
it
this
was.
is,
This licensing for building inspectors is so much like all of the state
Right.
licensing in every state. This is not a Rhode Island thing.
Right, you're a
Where it's
plumber,
like,
the electrician. and so forth.
Yeah, and, you know, they've made it harder and the existing inspectors have made it harder and harder to get a license to become an inspector.
But, you know, the point, Keith, that you brought up, I mean, this doesn't have to be one person. There may be someone who's, you know, was plumbing or electrical, has retired, and they just, you know, it might fill the bill from there, so.
And we're open, you know, we've said it here, I think once or twice, but we're open to part-time work so
Right.
that it is a risk and a leap and you have to go through and pass some tests and people may be reluctant to step away from whatever jobs they have. And so I think there is room for someone to take this on concurrent with an existing role without um, maybe taking as much risk and also seeing if it's the right fit for them.
And presumably the person will be spending some of the time that we're buying studying.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. So.
I like it. It's,
I do also.
In the next group of items there, I'm actually going to go bottom to top. Just feeding some information back. We have 7 police vehicles. I think that question had come up. A 2023, a 2021, and then 5 that are 2019 and older. I didn't get the mileage, but
Yeah, that's a lot of vehicles.
it's a lot of vehicles and it's time for us to dispose of at least the bottom 2. They're costing us more than they're contributing.
do we use them all?
We end up using them all in the summer. Whether you need to use them all or not, or whether it's a convenience, you know, it's a little bit of both, but you know, we do have officers off site who generally don't have their own.
Sure.
We're moving them around, we're moving CSOs.
Yep.
So
I just think that, a lot of times what had happened in the past where you have a car, it has a little bit of life left, not much, so we'll hang on to it. And then sometimes we'd even move it down, you know, to the town hall to use. I just think that, I'd rather have them have 4 or 5 good sound vehicles than 7 vehicles that are only equal 3.
Yeah, right.
yeah, so you know, I would say there's 4 primaries and
Okay.
then and then 3 additional.
Amy, there was a donation of some funds. Is that from?
It's from a few different people that were willing to contribute towards a new vehicle. Mona can tell me exactly what is in the capital for this year, but it's the cost of the vehicle minus the donations that have been received.
No, was the donation earmarked specifically
Yes.
just for a vehicle? Was it a specialized vehicle? Or was it just a nice gesture and they said,
Just a nice gesture.
great. Well, hats off to those people.
Yes. Mona spent some time confirming the dispatch staffing levels. Those numbers on the surface looked strange, but given how we're swapping bodies and roles, that the math confirms. We've got some lower entry people replacing mid-level people. So that math does work and there's a little bit of extra capacity, as we always put in that dispatch line, for overtime, temporary staff, things like that. And then deer management, you know, we identified as a potential area of discussion if anyone wanted to pick that up. But
Do we want to, you're gonna go through this and we'll go back, or do you want us to talk about it now, or?
I think that's probably the end. The last
Okay.
little 4 bullets are things that we don't have updates on today, but sit there on the shelf and will continue to evolve.
The only question about the ongoing considerations that I have before we get back to administration deer management is 60,000 still the number?
For the comp plan,
Yeah.
that's the right placeholder.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
We're
For the comprehensive plan,
Oh,
there's a number in there. of
Yeah,
60.
yep.
And when you, I just wondered, like.
We're
is-
finalizing a
is there
recommendation.
A big surprise coming.
There shouldn't be, but
Okay. Yep.
let's talk about it Monday.
Yep. Great. Fair enough.
But those are really the items I wanted to catch up on. Mona, is there anything you needed to add?
think I have anything to add to that. Yeah, I'm just happy to elaborate on any details that anyone needs.
This is great. You know, my question on deer management, I don't know, I think all of us had this, is, is the tail, the deer tail reimbursement, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know whether there's a different number that induces more hunting. I have no particular idea. I just, wondered whether further inducement would make any difference.
It was not, no. And so one of the options is also, assuming there's room in the budget at the end of June, hold any balance remaining from the current year
Oh, yeah.
and contribute those dollars towards
Mhm.
next year, either if the takes are much larger and in quantity, which we've certainly seen in other years, or if the council wanted to, say, change the bounty during the season or at the beginning of the season, depending on what kind of.
That, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
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 Yeah, my question would be is, and we probably should talk to, the people that took the most, is the number down because your time you had to hunt, or is the number down from that end of it? And then my follow-up to that would be, on the deer management, we're using that for bounty reimbursement. Are we restricted to only that, or is it for any deer management?
It's both tails and tags. So there are two different incentive programs that we run. And deer management is a pretty broad descriptor. So if we wanted to
Right.
identify other uses, I think it's important to do that, to make that decision at the council level. But I think there's plenty of room to do other things in that line.
Because say we did carry that over, which I think is a good idea, and we find ourselves next year, and we're coming through, and we've only spent 20, and we have the 40. We would have, I'd like us to be able to have the ability to say, hey, there's some other type of deer management thing that would be beneficial, whether it's ironstone from a study to some type of whatever, depending where we get with the DEM for baiting, just to have that flexibility. If under that, we have that flexibility at the council side,
Yeah.
then I think I would strongly say, let's keep that number that it is and roll the other into it, because based on what happens.
I agree with you, Bill. Yeah.
To your first question, the indications that I've had are that there wasn't a change in the level of effort put forward this year, but it was really the numbers that were out and available.
So I had something that I wanted to raise on housing. We have, they get too deep about this, but we have one genuinely existential issue on the island, and it reaches through to everything else, and that's housing. And I sort of feel, I feel like we do not have the information and data that we need to be making good policy decisions about housing. I've talked to Amy about this. I've talked to others about it, and I mean no offense to our sister island, Nantucket. There's not a lot about Nantucket that I want to be, but they last year did a comprehensive housing needs assessment. It's about 30 pages long. I'll forward it to all, or I'll forward it to Millie so Millie can distribute it to you. It is really impressive because it does a very deep dive, as the statisticians say, high touch analysis that I would hope includes actually talking to people on the island who are trying to figure out what their housing future is, what it look like, what are the needs, what should the rental allocation be, what should the discounted purchase option be. We've done, when you look at it, an extraordinary job. I mean, I think we're always responsive, but it does feel sometimes like we make our housing policy a bit, anecdotally is probably the wrong word, but episodically, where it's sort of like, well, we have this opportunity, let's do this. We have this opportunity, let's do this. But without a real long-term kind of, we need to get to 20 rentals. I'm totally making that number up, but we need to get to 20 rentals. We need roughly seven one bedrooms, and I mean, literally like that. So 4 studios, what, I don't know, but I was laughing before we started the meeting, sort of saying, if somebody said, hey Keith, here's a check for $5 million, go do some housing, I'm not sure I don't know where I would start with that. I really don't, because I don't, I know that there's a need. We hear them not every day, but with some significant regularity about people who are really essential to the community across the board in different ways, who are struggling. I worry that young families, I worry that young families are gonna, they have been, but really start to vote with their feet on some of the stuff. When you have an average housing price like we have, they're gonna, and what does that do to the school population? How do it's just, it is the essential existential kind of issue. So, I would like to spend money to retain a firm to do a deep dive, but accessible to us as policymakers, housing needs assessment. And I'm quite confident. I don't know about you guys, but I'm quite confident that with data and a plan that's supported by the town, I actually think there's quite a bit of private money that would be that would be willing to help and invest charitably, not even as investors. But we don't have the data to go to people with about it. I wouldn't know. I don't know at this point whether I would say, whatever, we need, in addition to the 8 sales, we need 8 rentals up on the west side. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I also don't know what, and Bill and I have talked about this before. I also don't know what the structure is. We're getting to a point where we have a lot of, the town controls a lot of rentals. What does that look like? Do we have to have a structure around that? Do we, how does all that work? Who's managing it? Who's the whatever, the Tom Reesum, because he's here, who's saying, boy, the mini splits over there are really at the end of their useful life, and we've got to figure that out. I don't know what that all looks like. And the one thing I know for certain is that I'm not expert enough to figure it out. I'm passionate about it, I will say, but that's about the end of it for me. I know that I have a feeling that we probably should be looking at what rentals are going to look like. I mean, there's this gigantic generational change that's happening right now, where you have large numbers of people who are young to me, youngish people who either feel blocked from purchasing or have decided that they don't ever want to. They don't want to own a house. They're fine. Fine paying rent.
Reasonable, right?
Yeah, reasonable, you know, but it's just, so anyway, I wanted to raise that because I think all of us agree, you know, as I was reminded of this when we were having the conversation about the 513 reg of all of ordinance of all things. We all sort of agree we're gonna have to have sort of a multi-pronged approach to this. Um, 513, some ownership, some rental, you know, it's all wonderful. We also, I think, and I was thinking about this, you guys probably worked it. See in the school budget, like the adding 0.4 for a physics teacher and adding 0.2 for a chem teacher, you know, and of course, the first thing that occurs to you is, well, where are we gonna house those people? Well, you know, we have people who are retiring who own houses who are unlikely to, you know, it's like there's no middle of the market here. We've got to kind of figure that out. So anyway, I'll shut up. I could go on for even longer, much to your chagrin, but you know, I think we're talking like 80,000, you know, $100,000 for something like this. I don't know how much headroom we have, but I do think doing something on that moves us in the right direction on housing, I think, is essential.
Can any of this be funded by the housing board with the money they take in?
I don't think they have any money left.
Uh,
I mean, they're really,
I mean, I agree with what you're saying in the sense that, you know, we've built a lot of houses and I like it when we build houses and people buy them because then they're responsible and they have to take care of them. I think that's the easy route and that's the route I think we've been going. The reality of it is, I think there's been a follow-up effort to that in the houses, the Thomas House, a good example. And the same thing with the power company that's buying, you know, Arnie Flagg's house, is that the reality is that there's gonna be people that, you know, not only if they're employed for the town or for the school, that want a place to live, that don't necessarily want a house. They may have a house on the mainland, but the problem with that is once they retire, we still have that same problem when we do it with when we do with the house we build and they move in from that end of it. So I think there does need to be some bird's eye view as to what do we actually have. And I was amazed, matter of fact, it came up when I think it was the housing board was saying what qualified for affordable housing and so forth, when they put that list. And that was the first time I kind of saw a list altogether, like, wow, there are quite a bit. I think I think we definitely need some type of, you know, whether it's $100,000 or how comprehensive, I don't know. But I think we need to have a strategic plan that encompasses what we currently have and what our needs are as far as should we be shifting over to, and I'm not a big fan of the town being in the housing business. And I know I'm not, because I just, you know, it's easy to have a housing authority when you have 1,000 units and the money comes in to cover it but when you only have 10 or 15, sometimes it's hard to get that to float. But in the same token, I think we have to identify what it is and then we can determine, you know, who funds it, who owns it, how's it run, you know. I mean, you look at the Sears Ball housing over there, you know, it's getting tired.
it
You
is.
know, and
Yeah.
there's you know, and that's, you know, it's getting tired, and how the dollars all work with it, and whether it's Section 8 money that comes in, or whether there's a housing thing that's um, not done with, you know, with federal subsidy, how those numbers work, I don't know. But I do think we need to look at, we need to look at housing that is, you know, not necessarily owner operated.
Yeah, and I, one of the things I worry about, and it's always, I think this is tough to say the way that I mean to say it, but sometimes I think we're better off doing this ourselves, because it it feels like for the relatively small number of units that we likely need, the challenge of dealing with state and federal agencies almost isn't, you know, it's an issue.
Like you serve law, you could qualify people from all islands.
Yeah,
The flip side to that though, Keith, I look at the Coast Guard station, I look at their challenges with the Thomas House. I look with, the challenge we have for upkeep of the property we have. And I struggle with that because I got to the point where I'm like, the town should buy all the land that we can. Because we're good at mowing, we're really good at it. But beyond mowing, it's
Yeah.
been a challenge, you know what I mean? And it's not
It is.
because of any individual, it's been a challenge because it's not the business that municipalities are ordinarily in, you know? When you have a city like Providence, whatever, and they have a housing authority and they have, whether it be, like I said, 3,000 units, and they have the money coming in, it balances out. But whether you have 8 units or you have 20 units, now you have so I don't have the answer. I'm
yeah.
open-minded, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's, anyway,
But I would include those 513s and those
Yeah.
on the plan, and maybe we have more than we realize, maybe we don't. But I think, to me, the 513s and getting people to do that, then the maintenance ownership isn't on the municipality, but it needs to be,
100%.
incorporated in.
I've often wondered whether the least expensive way to generate some rental housing is by the town kicking in capital subsidy on 513s. So you're not talking about whatever, $600,000 a unit. You're talking about kicking in whatever, I'm totally making these numbers up, kicking in $100,000 capital subsidy. Something, like, I want to learn about that stuff. I don't know. Does that may be a stupid idea? I don't know.
Well, I think there's a program now and,
Yes.
where there was a person that had donated
Yeah.
some money in a group with, I don't know what this 50,000, something
I
like
think
that.
it's 50 grand. Yeah.
There may be private sector
Yes.
here's a case where an individual was
Yes.
willing to do that.
Right.
Current grant program is still running. That's still available to anybody who's willing to
And
put up a 513.
Was that
Now, that
successful?
10,000 foot view would incorporate all of it.
yes,
In the numbers, you thought you're just saying 80.
it's like, I think it's like between 80 and 100. Yeah.
I think so.
And I really, I just have to say, none of what I'm talking about, I mean, the effort has been extraordinary. You know what I mean? It's not about anything. It's just, let's have a direction. Let's have data. Let's sit here, the 5 of us, and look at the data and figure this stuff out, figure where we invest town's money, figure out where, we make a community appeal to say, we feel like we need to do the following over the next 15 years, yada, yada, yada. But we don't have that right now, and I think we need it.
Well, it feels like we have individual groups in different areas, and it's not all, whether it be the person that had donated the money to do the ADUs is not, left hand's not talking to the right hand, and not meant in a negative way. It's just everyone's kind of off on their path, whether it be the housing board or.
Yeah.
And what you're thinking of, and I don't know if you just brainstorm at this point or how much you looked at it, is obviously the cost would correlate directly with the scope of what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to send this to all of, again, I'm going to send it to Millie to send to you. And we can talk about it next
Sure.
week. But
look at the slide deck, read the full report. It's really pretty impressive. It's not identical, but I love the headline, and you'll see it is, what number are we solving for?
Was it, is this, Nantucket you're talking about?
Yeah,
They did?
yeah. What number are we literally, the headline for
Right.
for their thing is, what number are we solving for? Because I don't know that.
Right. Do you know what that plan cost them or what
I
their,
believe it cost them 100. Um,
Well, I'd like to know a little better just on the town's property that we own, what is available to be built on if we needed it.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Current inventory.
yep.
Me
So
too.
maybe if we took a look at that, that will give us an idea how wide
Yeah.
the scope that was and whether it's, wide enough, or maybe it could be narrowed down or whatever, based on what our needs are. Another two, the motions are all the same, but
Millie, I'm sending this to you right now.
is this something, Keith, that they just, they
did-
just completed, or
They did it in 2025.
would it be worth us, reaching out to them?
100%.
And then just saying, hey, listen, if you were doing it over
Yeah.
again,
Yep.
would you change the scope of it? Did you,
So this was, you guys know Jerry Noonan. He's been really engaged with these guys because,
Jerry Esmond?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because, he's really interested in, he has some of the same feelings I have, like not to quote, what are we solving for here? We all sort of feel, in our gut, but we don't have any data, or we don't have current data. So I have talked to him a few times about it, and he actually reached out to these consultants. We would obviously have to go through what we think our scope ought to be. You have to go out to bid for these guys, all that sort of thing. But take a look at this and see what you think. That's all. Sorry, that was 20 minutes of your life you'll never get back.
Well, the one thing I'll say, I like the fact that, someone has done this and then we can, at least we can go back to them and say,
Yeah.
hey, listen, did you get money's worth? What's gonna happen? Is this thing just gonna sit on a shelf? But,
Yeah.
at least,
Yep.
you'd be talking to someone who's already purchased it and gone through those motions. So that might help us as a direction.
There, what I sent to Millie is a link to this study. It'll open up into the study, but then up above is all of the programs that they have, including, as someone pointed out to me today, something the Affordable Housing Board, I think, has done in the past, which is, what kinds of things do you need in order to get a mortgage? Like basic homeowner educate. What are the main, if you're buying one of these houses, what are the things you have to be prepared for? These things that we kind of have been doing. Not everybody knows you got to get a lawnmower, and you have to paint things every out here every 2 years. They do some very interesting things in addition to helping to finance housing. Cool stuff.
Other places people want to go? Items to talk about or revisit?
I had a couple, but I'll defer. Are you?
No,
good,
go
Keith,
ahead.
right now?
Go. Yeah.
Mona, 4210 on income, the communications alarm fees. as I had gone back through, that's going to requested. Can you just explain that line?
Sure. Okay, what page is that on?
So it'd be on page 5 of 26, and it's the 4210 communication alarm fees. I just didn't, I had a hard time following it, that was all.
Would you give me the page again? Sorry,
Sure,
Bill.
page 5,
Page 5.
under town fees and income.
42, and the one you're at.
Yeah,
Towards the bottom,
yeah, was that where we said we're hopefully gonna enact
by the end of.
end of the
June,
year,
I
something like
believe it
false
was.
alarms and so forth? Is that where that revenue would come from?
No, those are not false alarms. So that is the annual subscription fee. I believe it's $350 charged to when you are connected to the head end. So it helps offset the town's ongoing costs of maintaining that head end. We did not charge it for the last few years. I can't remember exactly how many,
I got it.
because our head end was not stable.
Mhm.
And so now that we've deployed the new system, we have waived last year's fee, the current year's fee, as people reconnect. But we will be reinstituting that annual charge going forward.
This is the one, it was like 350 for a hotel, 200 for some other, so forth. There was a scale.
There's no
basically.
scale. It's 350. It's fixed.
So every building's 350, so something like I'll use the harbor side. The harbor side, as opposed to the Blue Dory, would be the same fee?
Yes.
And is that by ordinance or is
Yes.
that by a fee we set?
It's by ordinance.
Thank you. The other thing,
And we haven't changed it since the original implementation. That's the original fee.
I just saw I had forgot the difference in the number, that's
Yeah.
all. And then on page 9, on legal consultant, legal litigation, can you just explain why we pull that out, or is that
Legal litigation is what
yeah,
you're looking at?
litigation.
So I see that level funded from prior year.
Mhm. So
What
I
the-
get, yeah, I guess, is there litigation, or is that in case we have litigation, or do you expect litigation, or is it just, how does that work?
Right now, the answer is in case there is. So when we are involved in material litigation, we try to track that separately so that it's clearly identifiable. At the moment, we don't have anything on the radar or ongoing. But it's more a signal and a reminder that when that does happen, we like to clearly identify it.
Okay,
You can see the averages too.
yeah, no, I don't, I was just curious why I got pulled out, that's
Sure.
right. I don't have any problem with the funding. Just trying, this is half of education for myself, yeah, it's not
That's
so,
okay.
thank you.
Bill, I think that started with the Champlins case.
Okay,
If you want to know the why.
yeah, when the number was a little bigger. And then on finance, page 11, on 5,700, the training and travel, which I'm all big on training, but we have 8,000, but the years before that, it's 1,500, 2,300,
Yeah, that's just
38.
really to support the expectation of hiring a deputy finance and having a lot of training to catch up there with that. We had it in the budget last year because I had hoped to hire one, and it's going to happen after 7/1.
So you're gonna hire someone after 7/1, and is that, obviously, that's for the whole office though, correct?
Yeah.
But you think there'll
Mm.
be an increase, you're saying from what you spent this year of almost 4,000, the difference will be primarily because of the new person that you're hiring?
And so that's what we've spent year to date. That's only going through about half the year.
Okay.
There's conferences that happen more in the spring and towards the end of the year for government finance officers.
Okay.
that will increase that number. But yeah, I do expect that I need to have enough to work with.
Mhm.
I think there's always training to be done and ways to increase knowledge and productivity.
I'm a supporter of the training. I just was looking at from 24 and 25 where they were, 1,500 in the 23. So, that's fine. All right, so it's good. And then on page 13, you explained the wages, which is fine. On 5,700, the travel and training on page 13 for the, I guess this would be for the dispatches. I'm just a little concerned that, Paul had 0 in there for the 1,000 being enough. I really think the training on the dispatches is really important, whether that training is someone we bring in, or whether it be the dispatches go to Providence and they sit in a 911 or whatever it might be. I know this is what the chief had asked for from there.
I would reiterate two other things he added, which is that particularly for this upcoming year, a lot of the training is going to be specific to the new CAD system, which is included in the deployment of that cost.
Okay.
And then also that a lot of the dispatch training they are finding that they can do remotely is no cost. And
Good.
so they, particularly the new dispatchers, as they're coming up, are doing a lot of that. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean they're not doing it. It just doesn't have a fee associated. So I think that's an idea to hold on to for future years,
Okay.
but not something we need to fund today.
So the 1,000 is not reflective of the actual training again, is what you're telling me? 'Cause,
Exactly.
yeah, good. I just think that's an important position. I think that, and in the past, even when I was a chief, there were times that kind of other thing, it could overshadow it. That's all. So
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear that.
I would say holistically across the budget, when somebody brings a training opportunity, the answer is almost never no, particularly driven by funding.
Sure.
So we'll find a way generally to accommodate that request if it's appropriate.
Great.
We try not to ever turn away training.
Then on page 14, 5104 wages on beach patrol. Obviously in 24 and 25, I think 25 also, Matt was working and so forth. We have 0 budgeted. I feel strongly that we should have something on that line. Matt was an anomaly, we liked what he did and worked out well. I go back to the years when I go back to Ned Conley, Ned and his sister and Brian Farrar down the neck. A lot of times I was able to hire just summer kids, and they basically checked on the permits. My concern is that we're not always going to have the policeman to walk out onto the beach, and if there's a check and balance system. So, and like I said, I don't think it has to be so much a police officer as a heartbeat above a community service officer or whatever from that end of it. I just think it's a position that we should.
That's where our building officials started,
Yeah, actually it was. And that was always a great job. And as like Brian looks back on it for Raw, he said it was the best job I had in the summer. He said, I ruined my parents' Jeep, driving up and down it. He said, but it was the best job I had. I just think that's an area, and maybe because I'm going to talk about the funding for the CSOs and maybe be picked up through there, but I just think that's something that's worth having
In
check and
that
balance to it.
conversation, I'd love to focus on the functionality of making sure we are doing beach patrols as opposed to a line item, because I
Sure.
think from a practical perspective, it's likely that we will end up deploying a CSO or categorizing them that
Right.
way. I think the emphasis is on making sure that
The
work
function happens.
happens.
I just want to make sure it doesn't happen because it wasn't funded.
Yeah.
That's all. So,
I agree.
thank you. And then jump,
Did the DEM fund some Mr. Moran's work? Or was it
There were
funded?
two funding aspects to that, and Mona might correct me, but that's why we ended up keeping that line item separate, because it was a combination of the work that he did for us and then joint funding between the town and DEM for other functions of his patrolling. So it was a hybrid role, and it was hard for us to keep it separate from the other officers. And that's why I say it's likely that going forward, we'll be deploying people who have other functions within the department.
And then following up on that, that 5106, the wages for the CSO, obviously it was 25, 33. So it's that low 30s where it's been. 50 is what's budgeted. The chief has said that he doesn't anticipate more than what he had last year. And I think that if we end up needing to do some readjusting, and I don't want to, I'll leave the discretion over to you, Amy. But I think that if that number, if we need to get $5,000 or $8,000, I think that line would still be solid. As an area that we may have a little bit of wiggle room.
I think there's a little wiggle room. I wouldn't, so remember the 31,381 is a year-to-date number. That doesn't reflect the spring. So I think this current year, fiscal year 26, will track higher than 25 did. There probably is a little bit of room. What we're contemplating now at the 50 is 6 officers at an average of 450 hours over the summer, which is what the workload that they performed last year was, with a little bit of a haircut. I think when you do that out the 450 and 6 CSOs, you're at 54,000. We know, as we've talked about, people don't stay for the entire season. So we've taken that down a little. I think it can go a little bit more based on the reality that people don't start on day 1 and stay till the very last day. But I probably wouldn't go more than 8 in that reduction.
More than what?
More than 8.
Yeah, that's, I'll leave that to you fine tune the numbers, but I just think that might, if we need to, that might be an area there based on what the other was. On the housing, the 5,500 on the same page on the police, does that reflect, is that the Coast Guard, or is that outside housing, or is that?
A lot of that is outside housing. So it's Maclec, what we rent above Seaside.
Okay.
And we rent some rooms over on a property right here at the 4-way stop. And then that's also a stipend provided to the chief that offsets the full rent.
And then on the accreditation, you had said there was $2,500 is like an annual fee.
It's an
type thing.
annual fee, yeah.
It just
So
had-
some of that needs assessment, how many beds is that? On the housing? Is there a number? How many do we need? 8, 10?
I don't know off the top of my head. Do you know?
I'm not sure how many are down at the corner here, how many rooms are there.
We'll get you a count.
Yeah. It's 3 rooms year round. Housing up to 5 officers. A lot of times the CSOs are there. Most of the time.
Or is there, are the 3 rooms occupied in the winter?
I don't know.
I think there are times when they are not, and generally there's been rent accommodation if they're not occupied.
Do you have a breakdown of what each one is? Backlog and then? And I'm not questioning that it's not wise choice. I mean, the location works out well and so forth. It's just more for transparency.
So right now what we have.
I don't need it right now.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Unless you're good with that, Tris?
You good?
Do you mind if you keep going? I have a couple more.
Go.
Page 16. 7405 on the fire hydrant maintenance. Again, this is just for clarification, just what it is, not a question on the cost.
Sure, that's charged by the water company on an annual basis and based on how many fire hydrants the town has. I think it's about 1,200 for each fire hydrant.
And is that to
It's an
Test
annual
them,
maintenance,
to test
yeah,
them
and
flush them or whatever, or is it? So do we buy the fire hydrant itself or do they buy it and then we pay the maintenance? Do we know?
I can't remember the last time we bought a fire hydrant.
Yeah, I was just
honestly.
curious, that's all.
So there are also private hydrants. So I don't believe the water company buys them. I do believe they provide the service, the maintenance and the water flow.
Is the maintenance basically a testing?
Testing and exercising. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, while you're looking, I have one quick one. On page 21, GIS technology, and this is just a refresher, Mona. Just to refresh my mind. 5,400 consultant technology goes
that
70 this year. What, would you just remind me what that is?
Sure, yeah, that is bringing it, to where our actuals are. And that's going to be the work by Freedom Tech, our IT consultant company. And then it's also our website maintenance.
Thank you.
I believe that Freedom Tech contract is up in June. And so, there may be some variability as that goes back
Great.
into bid.
I just couldn't, I was looking through it again and couldn't remember what that
Yeah.
increase was. Thank you.
55, is that Allison now?
Yes.
100?
Page 19. Under recreation, 5,700. Again, the travel, training and travel was 320. Was negative. Oh, it wasn't 25. Anyhow, the years, it was, it was 5,000 last year. Excuse me, budget 5,000, yet we're spending less than, so far it hasn't even been $900. What is the expected change?
For that one, I went with usually with training, I tend to go with the department heads request, thinking that they're, have a training in mind. Often that is kind of offset by the gasoline. Sometimes we have the.
Yeah,
something put there.
I kind of feel when they put these budgets together, it should be based off of like a zero-based budgeting, based off of what they're gonna need, not leapfrogging what was the year before. Which I have no problem with, if there was 5,000, but when it wasn't spent all the other years, if there was some new plan or something coming in, but
So I think what you're looking at, Mona, remind me, is now that we've combined the training and travel lines, if you look at the travel for 24 and 25 in the 3,900 range, the line item budget that Dave has put together called for 4,500 on the travel, and then the balance is training, mostly membership fees and annual conferences, which are so. The little bit of shortfall there is in the travel, the difference between 4,900 and
so where is it? So if you take the travel the year before and move that up to that line. because
training
that's
and
being
travel are
combined.
now
Okay,
combined.
that makes sense.
And so that 5,000 is about 4,500 in travel and about 500 in
The difference
training.
doesn't the difference doesn't bother me. It just, I didn't realize I was combined there. That's all.
Yep.
And I assume that's the same thing with the library. You combined them?
Yes.
That one doesn't match as close, but I understand how they got there.
I think you heard Bob say that they were not able to do the training they wanted.
Right,
So,
but he,
yes,
yes, I did.
they hope to
That's-
get back to it.
Yep. On the, page 22, on the land use, the consultant planner. So, Allison used to be our planner, correct? And the other gentleman took over as a consultant for that role that she had. And
She was also a consultant. She wasn't staff.
Right, I
But
know,
yes,
but
now Peter is our planner through
Peter
Libra.
is.
Yep.
But we still use do we still use Allison for something?
Allison is our GIS coordinator.
Okay.
So that was the question Tristan asked. She also is winding down a series of grant management projects. So you'll see her on some Corneck Road projects, some hazard mitigation, some stormwater, and some housing.
But Allison isn't coming out of that 51, 5112 line,
No.
correct?
No.
She's up in GIS.
Right. So what was the big jump on that? Oh, okay, actual 72, 61.
Which line?
The jump from last year's budget. to
Yeah, the
this year.
15,000, is that just to reflect what we've actually been paying?
Yeah, and just
Okay.
all the ordinance changes, it's required substantial,
Yep.
more time from the consultant.
No, I see, because you did the 72 and the 61, so it was basically under budgeted from what we were paying out in the past?
Yes.
Right. And that was on the operating, that's all. I think Amy, you covered a lot of it earlier in, I'm good with the operating, thank you.
I had intended, and I'll do this again, much to your embarrassment. I know how hard this is and how many hours it takes and how much brain power it takes. And I see what other communities have to go through on their budgets. And I think you do a terrific job, and you've done a terrific job. And it's hard. It's probably hard for you to understand how much it eases my mind, and I think all of our minds, to know when we ask a question how quickly the answer comes. And I think that goes to not only knowing the numbers, but being very transparent about the stuff. And I just want to say I really appreciate it. And I think that I know the council does, and I think the town does as well. And if they don't, they ought to. So thank you.
Good job. Amy didn't help you, because it's hard to follow when someone's very good at what they do, and you're holding your own. So thank you.
Yeah.
My memory's not nearly.
Let's
as good
get
as
that damn
Actually,
deputy.
good.
got from
Let's
other-
find the damn deputy.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. The reality on this is, the office is down a person, and so that's another factor that goes into this. So
Absolutely.
are we also going to talk about the was it the capital? You want to do that? Oh, you want
We can talk about it.
Sure. The only thing that I had on that, we had talked about the fire truck and, I really, like I said, I think the fire department has been well served in the last, with the trucks and so forth. And whether we do or don't need it, it's beyond my knowledge, but I do think that from a financial standpoint of view, if it is a need that we are going to have and we can save look like 300,000 or whatever it is. If we can see some of those numbers with that, if that's the case, then that's a big factor for me. There's needs and wants, and if it's a need that was scheduled to go through,
Well, we haven't had a needs assessment done. right? Not that we can recall on for this particular purchase.
will we get a twofer
I mean,
with
that's a
housing and
big one.
fire?
It's a good part, but.
Big one still in the room that's like broken record, we've ordered it, but people have approved the funds, is that we have another piece of apparatus coming with nowhere to put it. Unless you can report that that's changed.
Actually, I can't report it today because it's not on the agenda, but we're making good progress on that
I
one.
mean, that's,
But the important clarification, again, without having a direction on this one, is that the commitment is that engine 4 is a direct replacement. We are surplusing the current engine
Right.
4. To me, we wouldn't have this conversation if that were not the case. Because we
And
don't,
it's not a housing issue if that truck were to arrive, one is leaving, one is going in, so it's not a housing issue. That's what was presented to us.
yes,
yeah, it was, and that one originally arrived because it backstopped while one was being serviced.
Sure.
It was a used piece of apparatus that was perfect. But, I mean, the chief in his narrative this year, there's a thing, I mean, I think he says direct the NFPA standards on testing, which he said in the past that's a guideline. I mean, that's not interchangeable. I think it's great that we should follow the NFPA standards, but to what point I worry about minimum staffing on this many pieces of apparatus. So, I mean, that's one big thing, especially in the wintertime when the department is just a handful of members.
I mean, for me, it comes down to a mathematical thing.
Right, and-
The money, I can't speak for or against it. I know so little about from that end of it. I just have to rely on, people like you and the fire chief and the members, I guess.
But it is, I do understand correctly, Amy, that what we're talking about is a swap of a new for an old, not an additional. This is on the pumper,
this is on engine 4.
on engine 4, yeah, whatever it's called. We're not adding to the fleet, we're replacing something.
We are replacing something in the current fleet. I think Tristan's point is
Is about the,
that when it was acquired, it was an add-on.
I see,
I think that's what he's trying to say.
gotcha, yep.
I mean, there's 14, I mean, that's 9 pieces of equipment up there. I mean, just to a staff of a minimum of 3 or 4 members, you're at capacity right there. I mean, total with ancillary pieces of equipment, you got 14 different pieces of machinery up there.
And we haven't been billed for the one that's coming yet. As far as the
We,
taxes, in other words, we bonded and but we haven't,
correct.
I don't know what the right word is, but
We have not done any borrowing, and so that hasn't been paid for by the taxpayers at this point. We're still sort of working out whether we can fund that through reserves or whether we need to add it on. My expectation for our next meeting, just so that you can mentally prepare, is to take those warrant questions that are proposed, because at this point we have a fair number of them. You will have a draft handout on each of them outlining some of the specifics. And it'll also integrate then into your debt discussion. This is where we are today. There'll be another iteration that starts to contemplate where we are today against some of these proposed ideas that are coming forward. So we'll be talking about all of that next week.
Great.
What day are we meeting next week? Is it,
There's a regular town council meeting on Monday, the 6th. It does include budget discussion. It
Okay.
depends on when Amy was ready to present and Mona ready to present. And then there's another one on Thursday, the 9th. And that would be the final
Yeah.
and the approval as well.
the ninth is the ninth is the adoption?
Yes, but there's also will be a budget hearing and many
Before.
discussions you want prior to the approval.
So Monday night though, Monday night we'll have this discussion again, Amy, right? You'll have, okay, and you're gonna take what we talked today and similar to what we did and this was really helpful for me. I don't know about for Keith and Tristan, but when you gleaned what we had talked about last time and you had put them out there, that was, it saved me, even though I had a lot of
Very.
questions, sorry, but it was helpful.
Absolutely. We do have to convene a public hearing, and and now today. But I don't want to do that unless, or until you guys, if you've gone through all your questions.
I'm good with
Okay.
everything.
I have a motion to convene the budget public hearing, please. Second. All those in
Second.
favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Would anybody like to speak at this budget hearing? Tom? Can I have a motion to adjourn the public? hearing?
So move.
Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
So
Sorry.
Monday, just from, Monday's meeting it's still a budget hearing, correct? I mean,
It's a full council meeting.
it's a full council meeting
Yes,
and then
but
we
budget
can,
will be on the agenda.
right. So we can make changes still,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually wouldn't contemplate a new version for Monday.
Okay.
I would bring a new version for Thursday. Partially because we're gonna have a negotiation discussion on Monday.
Oh, okay,
And so-
gotcha. Yep.
I will not be here on Thursday, as I had indicated, so I will highlight anything on Monday. Right.
And I think at this point, we're all able to either track on this piece of paper or in our own notes.
Yeah.
The direction things are moving.
And so just, I guess we are adjourned, but I mean,
No.
Keith,
No.
No, no.
oh, we didn't, okay, I'm
I
sorry.
I just had to convene the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
We're required to have under the
I
charter.
gotcha.
So-
Sorry about that.
No.
So to your point, Keith, that you had brought up, where do we go so this doesn't, what's the next step on the about having assessment or whatever for the housing? I know that was something you brought up. I
Mhm.
mean, you're gonna try to get us, we're gonna have that email from Millie. Will we discuss this more on, because there's a couple of things. One, what is the scope and,
And how do we pay for it?
yeah, how do we pay for it and
Yeah,
what is that number? I
Yep.
mean, I don't know if there's anything that can be done between now and Monday
I think we can put that together.
Well, and to your point on the housing board, is there any here that they have? I mean, I know it's not gonna cover your initiative, but.
I mean, they
must
have,
done something in the
Millie,
past.
you did a survey, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. We do also keep a database that is kind of relatively constantly being updated of people who are still interested in housing. And then Allison Carley took our database. This was in the fall. And actually made cold calls to everyone on that list to kind of confirm were they still here, were they still, actively looking, and if they had a preference for, rental or ownership. And I will say that, the rental and ownership question is kind of it's a very vague question,
It
which
is.
doesn't really mean much to anyone because until you actually see those numbers and see how does that actually work for you and your finances and whether, so everyone would say, yeah, sure, I'll buy, or yeah, sure,
Yeah,
I'll
no, that's
rent.
part of the problem. with the
because,
survey.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, like a
It's-
3-bedroom house with I mean.
Sure. And and there's also that cap too. I mean, with affordable housing, you cannot make too much in order to fit. And that's a big challenge for our community, because in order to live here, as you know, it costs an awful lot of money. So you have to, you have to work to cover your expenses. And then, but yet you're not allowed to actually have work too much, because then that
Right.
disqualifies you from
Right.
affordable housing.
That is a much more articulate way of saying what I tried to start to say, which is one of the challenges with state and federal is how, the numbers are set, we're in a census tract with Westerly and a couple of others. And, frankly, what someone earns because it's so expensive to live here puts them over
I
puts them
understand.
over those state and federal numbers
Mhm.
for subsidy. So it's, a lot of this ends up being on us.
You require some-
Is that, I mean, that's fair, right?
On us, you mean in the sense of,
I think, so, Amy and I, give you a good example of this. Chris Warfel and, whether Mark McGuire was on it, but he was CC'd on it. Got an email a week or two ago from Chris Warfel. Amy and I got, and they're pursuing a state grant. This is not related to income, but it's illustrative. And we're not in the ball game for the construction help, looks like, grant, because our construction costs are so much higher. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't even know what to do. What do you even do with?
it's catch 22.
Yeah.
So I guess my thing would be is if we can fine tune what it would be for that type of
Mhm.
a study, and then we can look to see what funds might or might not be
Yeah.
available.
Are we all set? Ready to adjourn? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.